Hello everybody, it's time for a geography lesson this afternoon, and I actually haven't done a geography lesson with you yet so far online, so actually I'm a little bit jealous because I absolutely love this topic. I think there are so many fascinating things that we can learn all about the Arctic, and we can see how different it is from where we live in Derby to what it's like in the Arctic. And I'm sure that when you think about the weather and the conditions and the things you might see there, you will probably start to realise that it's very different indeed. So today then, I'm going to show you some pictures to start with, just to get your brain warmed up, because we're going to have a think about what it's actually like to live in the Arctic. Because although it's freezing cold, there's lots of snow and ice, people do still live there because there are 7 countries in the Arctic Circle. So I'm going to show you some pictures and see what you think. Now, see if you can work out which of these pictures are in the Arctic, okay? I'm going to share my screen with you. And Miss Wright has taught me how to use a Bitmoji now as well. So I put a little Bitmoji on there for you. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pictures here. So I wonder then, let's have a little look at these here and see what we can see. Okay, so this picture in the top left corner here, I can see lots of greenery, lots of grass and bits. I can see some ice in the second picture just here, some glaciers, perhaps some ice shelves. Oh, this is a pretty picture, isn't it? I'm not going to tell you what these are just yet, but they are beautiful, aren't they? I absolutely love looking at these, but I think I can spot some little clues perhaps in the background just there. Okay. Then I can see this picture over here. Oh, I can see lots of houses on this one. I can't see any snow, but I can see lots of houses, and they're all different colours, aren't they? They look quite interesting. Does that look like Derby, do you think? I can't say as I've seen anywhere in Derby that looks like that, but maybe it's taken in a different place. I don't know. Okay, let's have a look at this one. I can see a big partition in the ice just here where it's separated. Might be a little clue for you. Oh, this looks like a picture of a town on this one just here. I can see a church. I can see lots of buildings. I can see a dome on this building just here. And I can't see any snow. Let's have a look. Oh, this is a nice picture over here. These people look like they're wrapped up very warm. I can see they've got lots of fur clothes on, and there's some sort of teepee tent, but I can see some snow on the floor. Okay, might be a bit of a clue. And then, oh, this is a beautiful picture as well, isn't it? I can see lots of mountains. I can see maybe a bit of a river running through there. I can see somebody sat on this rock. Okay, so spend a little bit of time now then just looking at these pictures and working out which ones you think are going to be in the Arctic and which ones you think aren't in the Arctic. And have a think why. Can you justify it to me? Can you give me a reason? So I might say, okay, I'll give you a clue for one of them. This one here, I might say to you, right, I think this picture is taken in the Arctic because I can see that there's lots of glaciers and ice shelves and lots of snow. And I know that in the Arctic, it's very cold and there's lots of snow everywhere. So I think this picture must be taken in the Arctic. Okay, so if you want to, pause the video just here, just for a couple of minutes and have a chat with your parents, because in a second, I am going to tell you exactly where these are all taken. So don't spoil the surprise. Remember to pause it now if you want to. Okay, and for those of you who have paused the video, let's have a little look then. Now, you might be surprised. Mr. Heesom's been a little bit crafty here because, in fact, all of these pictures here are actually taken in places in the Arctic. Would you believe it? Every single one of these is taken in the Arctic. Now, when I think of the Arctic, I always think about it being freezing cold. When I think about the climate, so that climate means the weather, so the temperature that it's like there. So when I think about the climate in the Arctic, I always think it's really, really cold. There's lots of snow, there's lots of ice. I always kind of imagine that there's nothing there apart from snow. Whereas in fact, I'm mistaken because in fact, there are other things there as well. And like I said, lots of people actually live in the Arctic. So these 2 pictures here, if I show you this one and this one with the towns, these are actually taken in a town in the Arctic. And there are lots of buildings, there are shops, there are houses, and people live there just like they do in Derby. It looks a little bit different. I must say the houses are different colours, which I think are actually very pretty. And I think actually the different colours of some of the buildings in certain places in the Arctic actually represent different buildings. So I can't remember them off the top of my head, but I can remember that a hospital might be one colour, a shop might be another colour, a post office might be another colour, and that helps people identify, which means to find and to see which buildings they want to. And I think these look a little bit different as well to the Arctic, to Derby. They look just very different, don't they? They look quite modern. There are lots of white buildings there, so it does look quite different. But in fact, you will be surprised that it is in the Arctic, or maybe surprised you might have got it right. Now, also then, these pictures confused me a little bit because, again, like I said, I thought that in the Arctic, it was all just snow. But in fact, if we remember back to what we looked at before, we said that in the northern part of the Arctic, so that's the part that's, if you imagine that the Earth's a big, big round ball, okay, the Arctic is right at the top, isn't it, here? So the part that's at the top of the Arctic, okay, that's the northern part of the Arctic, that has snow for most of the year. That's the coldest part. But as you start to come down south, so you start to go down towards the equator in the Arctic, eventually when it gets to summertime, the snow does start to melt and it uncovers land there as well. So you can see here, there's lots of land in the Arctic. Now, we had a look at a word the other day with Miss Wright and we looked at the word tundra. Can you see that? Tundra. So that's where actually in the tundra things do grow. We have lots of mountains, we have some grass, we have some little shrubs, so they're just like little plants like bushes. We don't have any trees, but we do have some greenery. So these pictures here are showing us the sort of greenery and the landscape. Look, is that landscape? The landscape is the things that you can see when you look across the land. The landscape is quite green and quite lush, actually. And I can see some mountains in the background. And often in the Arctic, you will find it's quite mountainous, which means there's lots of mountains in there. Okay, so here are all the mountains in the Arctic. Let's see, what are the pictures we looked at? So we've talked about that one already. Now, this one, you might have got that it was in the Arctic. I think if you look very carefully at this one, it's not a very good picture at the moment, you can see that on these mountains here, there's some snow. These might be some ice sheets just here. Now, this here, these lovely, beautiful green lights, I would love to go and see these one day. These are called the Northern Lights, or the Aurora Borealis, okay? And that is a special thing that happens in the Arctic. It's to do with the sun and all these solar rays, and it makes a beautiful picture in the sky where you can see all of these rays moving. So at some point today, you might want to Google that and see if you can find some beautiful images of the Northern Lights, okay? I think they're very pretty. This one, again, is the ice shelf, where the ice sheets are starting to separate, and you can see that it's leaving a big crack in the ice just there. This one, I bet you might have noticed, this one is in fact in the Arctic as well. And these people are called Inuits. Can you say that word? Inuits. And they are people that live in the Arctic, okay? So they're native, which means they live there naturally. They've not moved there from a different country. They've always lived there. So these are called the Inuit people, and they live in the Arctic, or in certain places of the Arctic, okay? And as you can see, a big clue here is they're all wrapped up nice and warm in these clothes. Now, with these clothes, okay, when they go out hunting, the Inuit people or whoever lives in the Arctic, if they go out hunting for food, they might find, for instance, might kill a polar bear, let's say, because they need to eat it and they need to survive, so they need food to survive. Now, instead of wasting the bits of the polar bear that they don't eat, what do you think they might do with it instead? I'm giving you a bit of a clue here. What they would do with it was they'd use the fur to make clothing to keep them nice and warm, because obviously if the fur can keep a polar bear nice and warm, I'm sure it would keep a human nice and warm as well. So that's how they make sure that they're making the most out of everything they use when they hunt for the animals, okay? So I just thought that'd be a nice little activity to get your brains warmed up and thinking about, actually, the Arctic isn't always as we think, okay? There's some bits that might be a little bit different as well. And it does change, like I say, with the seasons. When it's winter at its coldest, I bet everywhere is covered in snow, where as it gets warmer in summer, especially in the southern parts, it starts to melt and you can see the different landscape. And oh, I'm gonna give you another word here. Are you ready for it? Vegetation. So vegetation is all the greenery that you can see, okay? So like the plants and the shrubs. So I've just given you a little explanation here, and I'll put this video on Dojo for you to see, okay? And I'll put the sheet on as well so you can see it. Now, I've also put some of those keywords that we've started to look at. Now, I know Miss Wright has gone through some of these with you, but for today's lesson, I want you to really, really get to know some of these parts of the Arctic and some of these key features that you would see. Now, these parts are called the physical features. Can you see that? Physical features. And the physical features are the things that you will find naturally there. So it's got nothing to do with humans, it just happens, okay? So imagine if there were no humans on the earth at all, these things would still exist, okay? They've got nothing to do with humans. Now, the opposite would be a human feature. So that might be like a house or a building of some sort. And that's what's happened because a human has put it there, they've made it, they've developed it, okay? But today we're just looking at the physical features of the things that we can see. So I have put some pictures here and I put their definitions with them as well to tell you exactly what it is. So we've got a glacier just here. We've got an ice shelf. So I'll start with a glacier. So a glacier is a huge mass of ice which is always moving. So I imagine it floating and bobbing around, okay? And these form on land and they flow like water. So you can see them kind of swimming around. Now glaciers are quite big. But if a bit of a glacier breaks off and snaps away, you end up with an iceberg. And an iceberg is a smaller piece of ice that has broken off from a glacier. And I always remember an iceberg from Titanic. I'm not sure if you've seen Titanic before, where one of the where the boat crashes into one of the icebergs. So they're little pieces of ice that have cracked off from the glaciers. Okay. Then we've got an ice shelf. So that's an enormous permanent floating sheet of ice that connects to a landmass, and these don't move. So the ice shelf will form from the land. So if you imagine the country, where the actual land is, the ice shelf will connect to that and it will kind of grow out from there. So they don't flow around, they don't move, they stay still where they are, okay? Then we've got ice floes. So ice floes are also huge pieces of ice, but these move as well. So they're bigger than a glacier. They can be absolutely colossal, which is another word for huge. And these form out in the open water, okay? So they don't form on the land like they do with the ice shelves. They actually form in the middle of the sea, okay, or the oceans. And these can be as up to 10 kilometers wide. That is huge. That is absolutely enormous, okay? 10 kilometers is a big distance. So although on this picture here, these are little ones, little ice floes, when you see them when they're fullest, they can be really, really big. Okay. Then we spoke about this word tundra already. So a tundra is treeless, and treeless means there's no trees. So a treeless ecosystem found in the Arctic. And an ecosystem is just how all of the things in the environment sort of interact with each other. So you've got the animals, you've got the vegetation, so the plants and things. So it's how that all works together. So it says here, the climate is very cold and windy, and there is very little rainfall, okay? Tundra is covered in snow for most of the year, but as you can see from this picture here, as the snow starts to melt, it uncovers the land underneath it as well. We've done iceberg, and then this one, I thought I'd pop this one in because I find this one really, really interesting. So this is pack ice. Now, the pack ice isn't the boat, before you get any ideas. The pack ice is underneath the boat, okay? And this occurs when the sea starts to freeze over and it eventually turns into ice. So we have these large ships called icebreakers that break through the ice, okay? So imagine the sea eventually, because it's so, so cold, it starts to freeze over. But some boats that are really strong and really powerful in the Arctic, they could crash through the snow, through the ice and break it up. So they're called icebreakers. Now, that's another one to have a little Google of as well and see if you can find it on YouTube, because some of these videos are really, really cool, I think, because you can see the boats. It looks like they're sort of just in the middle of ice. It doesn't look like they're in the sea at all, but you can see how they're breaking through. And there's some names for the key boats that you'd find in the Arctic as well that are called the icebreakers. So you might want to have a little research into that. But I just thought it was really interesting. So for your job today then, oh, actually, before I go on, I'll tell you about your job today. So your job today, I want you to have a little go with these pictures just here. You might want to chop them up, see if you can learn the definitions for them, and see if you can play a quick matching game with them as well, okay? So see if you can find the pictures and the definitions the quickest and match them together to help you learn some of this vocabulary. Also, if you want to have a little research about some of these things as well, like the Northern Lights and the icebreakers, that would be a nice little job for you to do as well. You might want to write down some bullet points of key information that you found there. Now, I've also put on here I've also put a link to a YouTube channel. Now, I find this YouTube channel really, really interesting. It's, I think her name's Cecilia. It's a girl who lives in the Arctic on an island called Svalbard, I think it is. I can't say that very well, Svalbard, which is a little Norwegian island in the Arctic. And when you have a look through these videos, it gives you a really good idea of exactly what it is to live in the Arctic. And this woman lives in a house in the Arctic, but she's not got much electricity. She doesn't have running water, so she does have some challenges. But it shows you as well how she goes to work and what she does in her social time. And it shows you what it's like with the lightness as well, because you've got to remember in the Arctic that they sometimes have a long period of darkness where they don't have any sunrise at all. Also, they have a long period of where it's just sunlight, okay, so there's no darkness. So it's quite interesting to see. Now, you might want to watch one of these videos with a grown-up just so that, you can talk about them and discuss them and see how they are, okay? But I find them really, really interesting, just to give you an idea of exactly what it's like in the Arctic, okay? So there's some nice jobs for you there. See if you can have a little look and see what you can research. And I'd like you to write down some bullet points for me of some of the key information that you've found, and we'd love to listen to what things you've seen, okay? So hope you enjoyed that, and let us know how you get on. See you all later.